All right, I think we'll get started here, so if you want to find a seat, that would be great. It's my pleasure to introduce our virtual farm tour for this year, Homestead Dairy. Just going to give you a little history on the farm. The original dairy actually was started in 1945, and I was going to say Ole and Lena, but it's Elmer and Lena, but I won't tell you an Ole joke, but that would be Brian's grandparents. And they started with 9 cows. And then in 1979, Homestead Dairy was actually formed with their 2 sons, Floyd and Dan. And then as the farm continued to grow, in 2000, they put in a double 25 parlor and went to 1,850 cows. In 2007, they purchased another dairy, Legacy Dairy, of about 750 cows. And then their big move here recently was in 2017, they built a robotic facility to milk 36 cows in a robot. And that added around another 2,200 cows. So they're milking around 4,800, I believe, today. But Brian will probably give you better data than I. Brian, who is our speaker today, graduated from Purdue in 2003 and came back to the farm. He's got a cousin, Matt, that joined the farm. I believe a brother-in-law and a nephew, maybe, that are part of the management team and ownership. They also have really adapted a lot of technology over the years to manage the farm in a very sustainable way. In 2013, they actually put in a methane digester, so that's almost going on 10 years already. In 2015, they added automated calf feeders. And of course, in 2017, the robotic dairy. And I was just going to read their mission statement as well. Our mission is to supply the highest quality agricultural products in a sustainable way while creating a positive impact for the cows, business, and community. And Brian's wife, Jill, is here. If you can just wave in the back there. She's actually a much better public speaker than I am. We spent some time out there shooting some video. And she's much more comfortable at this than I am. But without any further ado, I'll bring Brian up and welcome him up. Thank you.
Morning. Thanks for coming, and thanks for the World Dairy Expo Committee for choosing me and QLF for sponsoring me to be here to, share my story and show you what our family does on our farm. So here's a picture of our family. So like Joe alluded to, my great-grandfather was the one that kind of set up in agriculture. He had 5 boys. He set up each boy with about 80 acres of farmland. 3 of those boys turned them into dairies. We now have purchased 2 of those 3. And so we have... Good? Okay. Anyway, so there's my family. So it's my mom and dad in the center, and my aunt to the right of them, my sister, her husband, and then my aunt's 2 boys. So that picture was taken in 2017 after the robots were installed. Obviously, everybody's gotten a little bit older. We've got 2 more of the next generation that have come along and could potentially be future dairy farmers. Still way too young to know, but yeah, that's our family. So this is a picture of the farm where, and I apologize for they're having a little difficulty with the color scheme on the projector, so it might be a little difficult to see. This is the farm that I was grown up on. And we've got a double 25. We installed Affy Farm in 2005, and then Affy Lab, I think, in about 2015. So the Affy Lab gives you fat and protein data on all the cows on a daily basis. Our feed center is there, and the methane digester is off to the left there, but the manure from this dairy goes to the methane digester. And all hospital cows, except for the robots, come back to this farm, so we can kind of focus our management there, and our other site is just purely milking cows. So this is kind of a 3D cartoon image of the robot facility. So when we were planning, so when I came back, it was kind of a dream of mine to, you know, the other dairy was kind of built over 30 years. You put a barn here or there, wherever you could fit it. We're kind of done there. We got railroad tracks on one side. We got high power electric lines on the south side. So there wasn't a whole lot of room to do anything there, and not any barn is the same shape or size. And so, you know, it functions, but it's not as efficient as these newer dairies. And so it was a dream of mine to build one from scratch, to take advantage of new technologies and efficiencies. And originally we were going to put in a rotary, because that's, you know, that was the popular thing. And, you know, a friend of mine who manages a rotary said, you know, you should really take a look at the robots. And so we kind of started talking about the whys. And so then we went to visit one, and it was just amazing at how different the cows act in a robot barn. And so we made the decision to go robots, and, you know, we still wanted to kind of design it for around that 3,000 cows. And so that's kind of what you see here. The barn, we've got 36 robots, plus there's 2 other robot rooms that are ready for another 12 if we chose to do so. But right now that's where we're calving everything, and then we've got far off dry cows. So we're kind of, you know, sitting there milking about 2,200 cows, and then we've got our dry cows and maternity there. One of the things that we've done a little different was the 3 robots per pen in a line. And so each room has 6 robots. We like it. The one amazing thing is I thought having everything there in one barn, there wouldn't be places to hide. But, you know, 8.5 acres under roof, there's a lot of places to hide. So when you go to find somebody, sometimes it can be challenging. So also the other thing, which I'll show later, is we've got a manure dryer attached to this facility. So we take our raw manure, we run it through a screw press, and then we dry it, and that's what we use to bed the cows. So here's kind of a flyover view of the 2 dairies. So this is the dairy, you know, that I was born and raised on. There's our feed center, and this was right before. This is about 2 months before we started milking in the robot barn. So you can just kind of compare it for size. And here's our calf auto feeders, and this was my great-grandfather's homestead that we milked there until we built the robots, and then we kind of shut that place down. So here's kind of a flyover view from the other side. You can see the four calf barns, the auto feeders. We got our wean barn here, another wean barn here, and then here's the robot barn. So now so this is the 3rd dairy, Legacy Dairy, that we purchased in 2007. When we purchased that dairy, it was a double 8 parallel parlor. And then in 2010, we expanded it to a double 12. So this dairy is about 13 miles away from the other sites. And the other thing is it was built, I would guess it was probably built for Jerseys. So the parlor's small, the stalls were smaller. We kind of changed the stalls, but the parlor was kind of hard to change. And so we're only sending up first lactation animals because they're, you know, smaller framed. And then there's less likelihood of them getting sick. So anytime we have a sick animal up here, we'll bring them back to the main farm like I talked about before. So up here they just milk cows. So here's kind of a video of the inside of our auto feeder barns that was taken about a month ago. And you know, it was, you know, I've got that on the next slide. Cleaning is very important, as everybody knows, for calves, newborns. So we take that. We got drains there on the bottom, and that's kind of why we can get away with washing up there where the calves are drinking. And so they're DeLaval machines, or Forester, actually they're Forester machines that DeLaval has resold. The nice thing about that is you got all the calf's data right there at your fingertips. If you have a question on a calf, you can go to the feeder and it'll tell you when the last time she drank was, her drinking speed, and how much she's drank today and the day before. I'll get, that's next slide here, or the slide after that. I'm going to start with why we went to auto feeders. So in 2012, the state of Indiana changed their environmental laws on animal units. So before 2012, a calf was considered a third of a cow, which makes sense. The calf is quite a bit smaller, doesn't eat or poop as much as a mature cow. After 2012, an animal was an animal unit regardless of size. So all of a sudden, our 600 calf huts needed to be under our environmental animal permit. And they told us we had 3 options. We either don't let the calf outside of the hutch, or we have to collect all the runoff around the hutches, or you put them in a barn. So we started investigating and touring around other farms, seeing auto feeders. We saw some that worked, we saw some that didn't, but we went ahead and we did it, and we are now able to, of course we've expanded since then, we've got the same amount of employees taking care of an extra 1,000 calves than we did in hutches. We had 680 hutches and we had about 9 guys doing it. Now we've got 800 in the barns, plus the other 2 barns hold another 700, and we've got the same amount of labor force. So it's a lot more efficient labor-wise. It's consumer friendly. The tours, it makes it so much nicer doing tours because the kids can actually get in and play with the animal, and they just love it. It's everybody's favorite part is, oh, when can we see the calves? And we got a little thing where they can name a calf, so whatever calf they go lay down with and pet, and they can name it, and then when they get their second tag, we'll put the name on it, and then we can kind of follow them through their lifetime. So tour-wise, it's been a lot nicer. The calves actually are more docile. They're more friendly, more calm around people. Wasn't anticipating that, not sure exactly the reason. And the other thing is, we were very fortunate. So we did the auto feeders about 2 years before the robots. So when we started the robot barn, the heifers that we were calving came out of hutches, and we kind of struggled getting them to adapt to the robots. And then about a month later, we started calving the very first heifers we raised in the auto feeders, and all of a sudden they adapted to the robots so much easier, so much faster. And they kind of just remembered as a baby, when they were hungry, they went to the feeder and ate. And that's kind of the same in the robots. When they're hungry, or they go to the robot and get milked. So it was kind of dumb luck, but it worked out very well for us. Now, feed program. So current protocol. So obviously we give colostrum. We give them a gallon immediately after birth. So as soon as the calf is born, we'll milk the mother and test it. As long as the mother's milk is good quality, we'll feed that to the calf right away. 6 hours later, another half gallon. We give them a first defense paste, tri-shield paste, and then from there, then after they've had their 2 feedings of colostrum, they go over to the calf facilities, they get weighed, they get their genetic test taken, they get dehorned, and they go directly onto the feeder. That was one of the things, everybody kind of said you needed to background calves before you put them on the auto feeder. And I said, why am I putting in auto feeders if I got to have 3 weeks worth of calves in huts, or 10 days worth of calves in huts? I'd still have to have 150 huts. So I kind of was like, what's the difference if you take the calf to the bottle or the bottle to the calf? So from day one, I had that mindset, you know what, we're going to try it, putting the calves directly on the auto feeder so they know nothing different. And it's worked for us. You have to have a person with patience the first feeding, because the calves don't know what's going on, but if they're hungry, they take to the nipple very well, and by 2-3 days they're on their own. They get it, and don't have to worry about having these 150 huts. So we are feeding pasteurized whole milk. So we've got our hospital cows, and then right now we've currently got a pen of high somatic cell cows that we're using to feed the calves. We'll pasteurize that. So each room, or each barn, So in this room, there would be a 1,000-gallon bulk tank that we put the milk in, and then it just gravity flows to the feeder from there. And then we add a VitaPlus 30% protein, 5% fat milk or powder supplement on top of that, just because whole milk, the limiting factor on growth for whole milk is protein. So I wanted to boost the protein and the vitamins and minerals a little bit to see if I could get some better growth, and we did. So we've been feeding that again for probably 7 or 8 years. So they're on the 40 Fit program. Back to the milk now. They're 40 Fit for the first, I think, 30 to 35 days. And so that means that they can drink up to 24 liters. So they're allotted a liter every hour. And so that calf could go in every 2 hours and drink 2 liters. So we do have very few, but we'll have calves hit 24 liters around that 3 to 4 week period. Our group average on 50 calves is going to be around 13 at peak. And then after that, we do a 5-day drop from 24 down to 10 liters. We'll hold 10 liters for a week. And then over the next 2 weeks, we drop them down from 10 slowly to 0. It's all automatic in the computer. So every day they're getting just a little bit less. And so they're on milk for 63 days. And then they're weaned off gradually. And we like to leave them in the pen at least a week after they've all been weaned, so they, transition and go on from there. Yeah.
At which age do you stop giving milk to cows?
63 days. Oh, sorry. How many days do we stop giving milk? And so 63 days. So genetic testing, we've been genetic testing since 2012, so 10 years. Before that, we had an old consultant that was kind of against genetics, said management's 80% of it, and genetics really doesn't make a difference. So the salesman basically said, yes, management is going to be 80% of the potential of the calf, but if you do that 80% right, that last 10, 20% can really shine. And so we started testing. We had plenty of heifers, so of course we'd cull the bottom end. Confirms parentage. That was kind of the biggest shock is, you think your guys are doing a really good job of writing down which bull they're using when they're breeding the cows, and then the maternity guys identifying the correct calf to the correct dam. I was shocked. We probably had the first 200 samples we sent in, we probably had 15% that were wrong. And so I started, every month I would look it up and say, okay, whose fault was it? And about half of them was the breeders, and about half of them was the maternity guys. And of the maternity guys, 80% of those was one guy, my main guy on the day shift that's been there doing it for years. So I took the report out to him, and I showed it to him. I said, when you have 2 calves born at the same time, how do you know who's the mother? He's like, oh, it's easy. You can tell by just looking at them. So I said, obviously you can't. And so, please, put the tags on a little bit faster. And so once they know that I can track it, my percentage of errors have definitely come down. But, that's a big deal when you talk about inbreeding and you're making these breeding decisions and you think that you have the right parentage, but you really don't. So I think that was probably one of the big benefits that we had there. So kind of how we use it today, I've got a spreadsheet that looks at the cows and heifers that I'm going to breed over the next 30 days. And then we factor in my cull rate over the last 12 months. And so it tells me based on my cull rate, based on my conception rates, my cull rates on the heifers, so I have 100 heifers and, 85% of them are going to make it to into the herd. So you look at all that, and then it tells you, okay, you're going to breed 500, and you need 180 live heifer calves to supply your next generation. So whatever percentage that is, then I will use that for my next generation. Anything genetically below that then is going to go to either beef semen or Holstein embryo. So we will do, on our top heifers, we'll do 3 services sex semen and then switch over to conventional. On first lactation cows, we'll do 1 service sex semen, switch to conventional, and then the mature cows, if they're in that top 50%, roughly it's 50%, they will get good conventional semen. And it seems to me, it kind of follows, so in my heifer population, I'm going to be breeding about 80% of those for the next generation. So there's about 20% of them that their genetics are worse than cows I've got in the herd. So I'm not afraid to put beef semen in a heifer because that's what the data tells me. And then on the mature cows, your third lactation and older, it's about the opposite. About 80% of them you're going to breed to beef, but I still have about 10-20% that are what I would say are elite animals that we're going to continue to try to get more progeny out of. So on the beef side, like I talked about, the bottom 50% are either going to get beef semen or an embryo. We're doing about 30 embryos per month with select sires. Trying to get some guys on farm to do some flushing. That's kind of been hit or miss. So the beef animals will go, the cross calves will go to an Amish family, and they will raise them to about 500 pounds. From there, they will go out to a feed yard that we partnered in northeast Colorado, where they will be finished out, and then we kind of split the profit at the end. So here I'm going to give you some data on our herd of actual genetics, and hopefully you can read that okay. So this is second lactation and greater animals, and this data is from like March of 2021, so it's a little over a year old, but it still shows you. So we've sorted out the lowest DWP animals versus the highest, and there's kind of the numbers at that time. 651 average dairy wellness profit dollars. The lowest was 160. Not a whole lot of difference in milk there, but when you look at pregnancy rate, we got a 2% higher pregnancy rate. We got less days open. Look at the abortions. Half the abortions, half the solds, a third of died, lameness, mastitis, a third of the mastitis, and pneumonia. So it just kind of goes to show you that the information does work, the genetic information. So this, again, is second lactation only on the wellness traits. And again, the highest is 176, the lowest is minus 58. And that's actual data on those animals from our herd. So transition and maternity. So in the robot barn, we have 2 pens for maternity. So we keep the heifers on one side, the cows on the other. We try to provide adequate space. We found that out the hard way when we moved our maternity from our old dairy to the new dairy. We struggled a little bit, and it took me a while to figure out because we weren't overcrowding the stalls. But then after about 4 months, we realized that the robot barn is a 6-row barn configuration, where the old maternity was a 4-row barn configuration. So even though I wasn't overcrowding the stalls, I was overcrowding the feed bunk space. So as soon as we then dropped down the amount of animals based on feed bunk space and not stalls, the fresh cow performance just went a lot better. So that was a learning experience. So it does, again, it proves that you don't want to overcrowd your close-up cows. So our average days in close-ups about 24. We're doing a low energy, so high straw, high amino acid, acidic diet, and all cows from all farms calve at this location. And all animals are, something new that we're doing is all animals are weighed after calving. And the main reason why was, so if you have a fresh cow that has a disease, you want to be able to treat her based on her actual weight. And before we would just say, okay, she's a heifer, she gets this much, she's a cow, she gets this much, and there's a huge range in weights and on all our, all the animals. And so we actually saved, we're using less antibiotics because we're actually basing it off the actual weight of the animal. To give you an example, I had a heifer calve yesterday that was 1,900 pounds. First lactation animal, 1,900 pounds after she had a calf. Now, obviously, she was overdue and a little older, but it just goes to show, we can have a 900-pound difference between a heifer after she calves. And so it's been valuable information to have. The other thing that helped is having the fresh weights on your heifers. You can start looking at your performance. And if your heifers aren't performing, you can start looking at, is it based on weight? So what we ended up finding was our heifers were calving about 50 pounds lighter to hit that optimal peak performance. And so what we ended up doing then was delaying our breeding by about 50 pounds to get those animals over 1,370 pounds after they drop a calf to maximize that performance. And so having that information helped us, make a better management decision. So on all cows, all of our cows have some sort of a wearable technology. In the robot barn, we've got the SCR tags. And then, so here's an example of a health report. So one of the great things about these technologies is it allows you to individually manage each cow, even though you've got a large number. And so every morning the vets look at these health reports, and it kind of gives you the chance of that cow actually being sick. So I think anything over an 80 is automatically sorted out by the robots. And so the guys don't even have to worry about going to look for them. They're already being sorted out, so they can look at them and see what the problem is. So that's been a very valuable tool to have in the robot barn. In the conventional dairies, we've got the AFI farm program, like I mentioned. So not only do you get the same data, so there's a health report that tells you the same information. This, I know it's a lot of numbers and probably pretty small, but this is actually allows you to track your employees in the parlor and their procedure. So this tells you milking loads, how many cows they milked, how many cows per hour, and then this is your milk flow in the first 2 minutes. So it tells you how well the employees are prepping the cows and whether they're following your routine that you had set up. So again, very valuable information to have to help being able to, so you're never there on your night shift, but at least now you can see what your night shift is doing without actually having to be there. So feed storage, like I mentioned, we're feeding everything from one location. So this picture is kind of our old commodity barn. I'm hoping someday in the near future to do a new commodity barn, have it fully enclosed, maybe take advantage of, either semi-automated loading or fully automated loading. But this is what we got now. Here's our robot pellet bins. We're also putting them in molasses at the robots. And of course, here's our silage piles. So this year we just finished corn silage on Friday. That was my favorite day of the year when the corn silage is done. The piles are all covered. We did a little bit over 80,000 tons this year. That's the most corn silage we've ever put up. Part of the reason was the quality that we were finding this year was like a 1 in 10 year event in our area, just perfect growing conditions. So even though the corn was priced pretty high, the feed quality overcame that, and we wanted to put up as much as we could. Also, the yields were up, so we had to get it up, put it up somewhere. So we also, in the springtime, we do triticale. This is the second year we've done that. So we did put up about 20,000 ton of triticale each spring. That has made a great combination with the corn silage. We feed a very high corn silage diet, so coming back with triticale on that has really improved herd health. Yeah.
You put the triticale on the corn silage acres?
Yes. Yeah. So we're doing double crop. It's so far in the first 2 years, it's worked out really well. Our double crop corn this year, we needed about 3 more days of heat to get that corn to finish. So it was a little wetter than we'd like. But just the weather forecast, there wasn't going to be any heat. And with me being here this week, we got to get it done. We got well, because we want to put more triticale back on the corn, get manure hauled. So we chopped it a little wet, but I got those results back on Saturday, and even the stuff, you know, it was 71% moisture at the wettest, so it's juicing quite a bit, but the feed quality, I mean, was still excellent. Starch was still around 38-40, digestibility was in the mid-50s. I'm so excited to feed this year's corn crop. Last year was such a disaster in our area with the tar spot. Everything dried down so fast we were chasing it. The corn silage I'm feeding now is like 50% dry matter. So the starch digestibility on the crop we just put up is as high as the starch digestibility of last year's corn silage that's been sitting there for a year. That's how different this year is going to be for us. It's crazy. So, and we'll have about 100,000 bushels of grain corn to do here in the next couple of weeks as well. So on the cropping side, obviously I'm more of the dairy guy, but my cousin does the cropping. We soil sample every field every 3 years. They now got, so we do corn, obviously mostly corn. We do some beans. So we rotate about 300 acres of beans and seed corn, and then around 1,000 acres of triticale that is double cropped. Variable rate all the inputs based on, you know, the soil samples. So we're variable rating the manure application, the seed application, based on the soil samples and the harvest data. So it was kind of neat. I think this was the first time my cousin was sitting there, you know, while we were chopping. You know, he's, you know, supposed to handle the cropping, and I'm like, how is he managing the chopping from his computer? Well, he was watching the real-time yields of the fields as they were being chopped from his computer. I thought that was pretty neat. So he was spitting off, oh, well, you know, this field's averaging, you know, 24 ton to the acre, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty neat. So that was something new that was happening this year. So kind of like I talked before, the manure dryer, so that's kind of a picture of it. So we originally installed it December of 2019. We struggled with it for the first, it worked well for 3-4 months, and then we had some issues and it wasn't performing quite like we expected. Finally, January of this year, we figured out that we weren't getting enough gas to the blower, or the burner, sorry. And so we changed Norphus in the spring, got more gas to it. All of a sudden we could get our temperatures up. We can get that manure solids to 70% dry matter, and all of a sudden problems went away. It was night and day. So here's kind of a picture of what our somatic cell count did once we fixed the dryer. So ours obviously is the blue line. So last fall we were running about 240,000, and that's going to be all dairies combined. We get the manure dryer fixed, and all of a sudden by February we were down to 100,000. So I would say, tell anybody, if you know manure bedding, if you're choosing to use manure bedding, manure dryer is definitely the way to go to make it work. We kind of like it because it's reusable, renewable. You don't have to go in there and dip out the pits anymore because you know the fiber will mix in. So yeah, we switched away from sand 10 years ago, and finally, after 10 years of trying to make it work, we think we've got the problem solved on how to make it work. So here is a picture of the digester that, oh, sorry. Yeah.
What was the reason? Why did you switch off the sand?
There was a lot that went into that. What we didn't like is we had to pay for the sand to come in, and then you pay the same guy to come in and haul it out. So you're paying for it twice, and we just felt like we wanted to be more, we felt like the renewable aspect of using manure solids, reusing that manure, I mean, as a family, that's the direction we wanted to go. get away from sand. We felt like there was going to be a point in time where sand was going to be hard to get. You know, we do have a lot of sandy ground in our area, but you know, when you're looking 30, 40 years from now, you know, is that really a viable option? You know, we could be wrong, but that's kind of the direction we chose. You know, originally we put in a sand lane, and this is what I find humorous. We put in a sand lane to reuse the sand. So we started that. My dad did not think the sand was clean enough to reuse. So what do? We go to manure. To me, that just didn't make any sense. But that's kind of the direction we went and kind of the why we did it. So yeah, so the digester, we were able, because of the sand lane and the manure separation, we were able to get a grant to put in this digester in 2012. Well, started in 2012, finished in 2013. So we got about 2,000 cows worth of manure going into the digester. And then we are also getting food waste. So we had a partnership with the University of Notre Dame where we're getting their food waste that's going into the digester. There's an Eckrich sausage plant nearby that we're getting their grease waste that instead of going to the landfill, we bring it, mix it with the manure, and create electricity. So we got a 15-year contract with NIPSCO, which we're pretty well halfway through now, and to sell a megawatt of power. And so that's kind of what we're doing there. It's worked out really well. This fall was the first time we actually removed one of the domes and dropped a skid loader in there and cleaned out the solids from it. So that was a fun experience. Went better than expected. Only took about a week, yeah, it's been a very good adventure for us. And with that, I got one more video, and then I can take some questions.
Homestead Dairy truly is a family farm. We have 14 family members that come every day to work, and we have 70 other employees that are truly part of our family too. I think the keys to our success are truly the passion that each individual family member has, and knowing that we can always get better. We can always improve. We can always find a new technology. We have the opportunity to always find a better thing for our team and for our cows and for the land.
The reason we adopt new technology on the farm is we always look at what can it help us do? Can it help us solve a problem? Can it help us find a problem faster? And ultimately, it's all about cow comfort, and can these things help us provide a better life for the cows? When we're making a decision on a new technology, those are the questions we ask ourselves. Is this going to make us better managers or better dairy farmers to provide better for the cows? Obviously, a lot of times the answer is yes, and that's why you see a lot of the technology that you have here. We're using the auto feeders on the calves. We also genetically test each calf when they're born. All of our cows have some sort of a wearable technology for heat detection and for health detection, so we make sure our animals are healthy. We've got the methane digester where we're converting the manure into electricity. We've got the robots where we're allowing the cow the ability to choose what she wants to do, when she wants to do it. So from the time that the animal's born, throughout that animal's lifetime, we record anything that happens to that animal, how she grows, how she milks, how well she eats, is all recorded and has helped us to make better decisions to provide for our cows.
Homestead is a very multifaceted dairy. They've been very progressive in growing not only their traditional business, but in the last 5 years, they built a robot facility that's one of the largest, if not the largest, in the United States. Brian, from day one, has impressed me with his ability to latch on to new technology and utilize it to increase efficiency and help with his operation.
The way we analyze data allows us to see where issues may be, where we may have problems, and then it's coming together as a family and trying to figure out how we're going to fix the problem or solve the problem. And I think that's been one of the things that's helped keep us going forward and continue to do so for the future.
guess I do have one more slide before I'll take any final questions. Challenges. Being a dairy farmer, every year is going to create its own challenges and be different. So right now, we've got, like I said, all the milk quality is pretty well taken care of, but keeping it there is going to be a challenge. Maintaining cow health. The last 8 months have probably been, so I've got a spreadsheet that I look at cow data, fresh cow health, since 2006, so 18 years, and this year's probably been the best that we've had in 18 years. So keeping that momentum going is going to be a big challenge. Continuing to drive toward net zero or carbon neutral, however you want to look at it, that's going to be in the next 15, 20 years extremely crucial to the viability of dairy, I think. And then, managing inflation and market volatility. What we've seen the last 3 years in dairy markets is just unbelievable. So I think, trying to manage those and manage your risk the best you can, I think is going to be, extremely important. And, these two quotes I just love. Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And what gets measured gets managed. That's kind of been my, that's my motto is, collecting information to try to, even little things is, showing the level of the quality of colostrum. That's recorded. Don't look at it a whole lot, but if you don't have that information, if at some point in time you're going to have a question on, what's this, what does this look like, or how are we doing here? So we're culturing from 2 of the 3 farms. We're culturing for coliform, and we can do LPCs ourselves on farm to try to help diagnose when we have a spike where it's coming from. We're culturing our milk that the calves are fed at least once a week. The milk coming through the feeder, is it valuable to have that all the time? Maybe not, but there's times where you really want to have that information. And so that's something we do a lot of, is recording information to try to help improve. So with that, I will take any other questions you guys may have. Yes?
Yeah, a couple questions about your bedding, the evolution since you switched from sand. Are you making the bedding post-digester or prior to digestion, and then what types of beds?
We got so the types at the main farm, so our 2 conventional dairies, they're deep bedded stalls. And so we will, on occasion this summer, we would have, if the stalls get dug out a lot, we may go in with sand once to fill that stall back in, and then right back with the manure fiber. The robot barn is on mattresses, so we are bedding there 4 times a week, just putting a little bit on there, just keeping the mattresses dry. The manure, 90% of the manure that we're drying is from the robot barn that's non-digested. In the summertime, we do need to supplement with manure from the other dairy, but in the wintertime, the manure from that robot barn would be enough bedding to supply all 3 dairies. We're still working on our hopper that feeds it, because I'd like to, right now that dryer's probably, it's running about 48 hours nonstop, and then it's off for a night. So there would be the ability to dry a little bit more. And I would like to, and we've done it once, where we've used, for whatever reason, it must have been early this spring, we had all sorts of dry bedding, didn't know what to do with it, and I was short sawdust for my weaned calves. So I ended up putting some of that in on a group of weaned calves, and it worked just fine. So if I had the ability to dry a little bit more and utilize that on the weaned calves, I would. Did that get all your questions? Okay, yep. Anybody else?
How does the QLF liquid feed works in your robot system, and what response do you like?
So the QLF liquid molasses in the robots, it took us a little while to figure out the best way to get it consistently to the robot. I'd say probably more than about a year or more. We've in that picture shows. Let's see, go back to it. Let's see one more. Oh, so our first attempt was if we get it high enough, we can just gravity flow to everything. So yeah, we've got it, I don't know, about 8 feet in the air, and that worked when the tank was full, and then after you got it about half empty, there was 12 robots that for whatever reason it would stop feeding. So then we ended up putting in a pump, an air pump that maintains like 10 psi on the line, and that seemed to solve the problem. We also had to add, we used Lely's liquid applicator, but then we had to put a check valve after that applicator because there was too much pressure for Lely's liquid applicator, so to make sure it wasn't leaking. But yeah, it took a lot of trial and error to get that going, but that did, once we got that consistently feeding, we saw an uptick in visits and refusals. Yes, sir.
What percent protein of QLF do you use?
5. Is that what you said? Yeah. No, we started with QLF. You know, and again, you know, I was feeding a very high corn silage diet, so 25 to 27 pounds of corn silage, and to come back with more corn and vegetable fat, vegetable oil, it's suppressed butterfat. So I kind of took over our diet myself in 2015, and at that time, you know, our butterfat would peak in the winter time at like 3.5, 3.6, and we'd get down to like 3.2 in the summertime, and I wasn't happy with that. I wasn't satisfied, and so bringing the QLF in using sugar instead of more starch on a high corn silage diet really makes a good diet and helps with components.
Great presentation, Brian.
Thank you.
What's your oldest cow, and what are your thoughts about longevity with all of the genomic work you do?
That is a good question. I'm pretty sure, I haven't looked at that recently, but I'm pretty sure we've got, it seems to be about like 10th lactation, we'll have 1 or 2 or 3. I think that's one of the things, with the mastitis issues we were having on the manure solids, that prevented us from having these older cows. And I think, yeah, with what we're seeing now with the genetics and having that problem now fixed, I'm excited to really see what's going to happen in the next couple of years. You know, our cull rates now, in the last 12 months, we're right at 30. I really think in the next year I can get that down under 25%. And that will then allow me to have a more mature herd. And that's everybody's goal, is cow longevity. But, you know, it's going to take, obviously it's going to take, you know, when we're averaging 3 or 4 lactations to get a bunch more cows to 8, 9, and 10, it's going to take some time, but that's the ultimate goal.
Have you been in the robots long enough to see a trend to better longevity there?
Not yet. See, that's again, you know, until we had that manure figured out, you know, last summer, fall, it was a bloodbath. The percent mastitis we had, you know, I mean, you saw the somatic cell numbers. That was nothing to brag about by any means. And so that was the place that we had the bigger problem, because those cows have that freedom to choose when they get milked. You have more of them laying in the stall, especially in the heat of the day of the summer. They're laying in the stall, leaking milk on the stall, and because they're, you know, either lazy or they just don't feel like getting up and milked. You got more of that in the robots than you do in the conventional dairy, where you're making them get milk 3 times a day. But so, that was kind of one of the challenges is managing your guys to, hey, when you see a cow laying down, leaking milk, get her up and head her to the robot. That's something that we're probably always going to battle. But since we've got the manure dryer fixed and the bedding is drier, we're, last month we're 2% mastitis. So back to the question on the robot barn, the one thing that's been constant in the last 5 years is reproduction. My preg rate is 3 to 4 or 5 points higher consistently compared to the conventional dairy. Everything else, milk production, herd health, it's just kind of, it's a back and forth, and it's, we've tweaked so many things. The first 3 years in the robot barn, we were feeding a corn gluten pellet, or 4 years. And in that, 3-4 years, we had 4 different vendors of that corn gluten pellet. So it was constantly changing, and each change changed the dynamic of the PMR, which then changes your components compared to the other dairy. And now in the last year and a half, we've been feeding, a formulated robot pellet. So then that again kind of changes. Energy corrected milk, we're still shipping 94 pounds out of there. The other thing to look at is, the robot barn. So we've got 4 heifer pens. So we got 25% of the herd's first lactation. Our, I guess, main dairy, our old dairy, since Legacy's only first lactation, that main dairy is 90% mature cows. So obviously you're going to have higher production. But that's, I kind of look at it, I did the first 3 years, I was really comparing, robots versus the conventional, what's better, what's not. Now it's okay, let's focus on the overall picture of herd health and cow comfort. So
It's just, when you walk into a robot barn, the animals are just different.
oh, they are very, yeah.
And you got to think that it's going to lead to better longevity in the long run.
Yeah, I think it will. So animals act different. The employees, way less turnover in the robot barn. I got 2. I got 2 guys, 2 of the 6 fetchers, or 5, I guess, that have been there since the beginning. I have, maybe I've got 2 milkers out of 12 that have been there for 5 years. So definitely less turnover there. Yes, sir. So between the 3 farms, last month we averaged 406,000 pounds a day.
We got time for probably one more question.
And then I guess I didn't answer that question, but so all of our milk is going to Walmart's facility, milk processing facility they put in Fort Wayne. So we're one of 2 independent producers that go into that plant. Obviously there are numerous RNG companies that are coming out of the woodworks. I think we get a call every week. So to say I'm not looking at it, I mean, we are. More so of putting a second one at the robotic facility. When you compare our electric contract that we got was pretty good, that it's not being offered again. So in our current setup, there's not a big difference between the RNG and the electricity because, of course, then the electric contract, the best value is at the end of it. So we're getting into the most profitable point of that electric contract, and at the same time, you're seeing the LCFS credits coming down. So, I mean, yes, we're talking about it, looking at it, trying to figure out what's the best avenue to go. I got a new one. I got an email from a guy out of California that wanted to, at our current digester, put in semi-trailers full of servers to use the electricity to mine Bitcoin. And they claim that's more profitable than renewable natural gas. So that's a new one for me, but Yeah, we're looking at it. You know, again, I think we want to get to that carbon neutrality, and that's a big step. So we will put in a digester. It's just a matter of who, what, and what we're going to do with it.
Okay. Well, I think our hour's up. Can we give Brian a round of applause? There's a lot of people that get data on their farms, but I have not found anybody that uses that information to manage the farm quite as well as Brian does. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for
job.
coming.
Outstanding video. Except for one 30-second clip of me in